Good day and welcome. My name is Frank Grabowski, and today I'm here to present an overview of the Dao De Jing by Lao Tzu. This book, though shrouded in mystery and debate, is the basis and the core beliefs of Taoism. So let's explore what the Dao De Jing has to offer us. First, let's look at the history of the author. The Dao De Jing was estimated to be written in the 6th century BC by Lao Tzu, who is also credited with the creation of the Taoist tradition among his many accolades. Lao Tzu translated to Old Master or Old Boy. This is where the debate between scholars and traditionalists comes in. Many scholars believe Lao Tzu to be an amalgamation of Taoist leaders and wise men from the time combined to create this great legend. Most traditionalists believe him to be just one man whose experience and wisdom created the tradition we know as Taoism. Others still believe him to be of the myth which states he was born a fully grown old man with white hair and beard, already full of knowledge and wisdom. I'm personally more inclined to believe one of the first two. However, the third is fun to look at as the mythology of our world. It's said that Lao Tzu was about to leave China to go live outside the Great Wall among the barbarians. A guard stopped him and asked him to write down his wisdom so that it would not be lost. Lao Tzu returned 3 days later with the Dao De Jing, giving it to the guard and disappearing forever. Lao Tzu, also known as Lao Tzu, was said to have been born around 604 BCE in the southern state of the Zhou dynasty. His given name was Li Er, and he was also referred to in many texts as Lao Dan. He worked as a record keeper in the archives of the court of Zhou, where he was well respected and revered. It is said that at one point the great philosopher and politician Confucius sought counsel with Lao Tzu on the subject of the importance and performance of mourning and funeral rites. It is said that on the subject Lao Tzu said this: "As for the things you are talking about, those people along with their bones have already rotted away. All that remains is their words. Moreover, if the gentleman lives at the right time, he rides on the carriage of an official. If he does not, then he moves about like a tumbleweed blown by the wind. I've heard it said that the good merchant has a well-stocked warehouse that appears to be empty, and the gentleman, though overflowing in virtue, gives the appearance of being a fool. Rid yourself of your arrogant manner, your many desires, your pretentious demeanor, and unbridled ambition. None of these is good for your health. What I have to tell you is this, nothing more." Upon exiting the meeting, Confucius looked shaken and a bit out of sorts, which was very odd for this balanced and powerful man. It is rumored that later in conversation with his subjects on the topic of his meeting with Lao Tzu, he had this to say: "As for birds, I understand how they can fly. With fish, I understand how they swim. And with animals, I understand how they can run. To catch things that run, we can make nets. To catch things that swim, we can make lines. And to get things that fly, we can make arrows. But when it comes to dragons, I cannot understand how they ascend into the sky riding the wind and the clouds. Today I met Lao Tzu, and he is just like a dragon." This goes to reinforce the legend of this man. But enough about that. Let's look at the book itself, what it means, and how it affects the world. The book was written as a guide to the Taoist religion, posing philosophical questions for consideration, outlining acceptable Taoist values, and addressing situations found in everyday life. In the first passage of the Dao De Jing, looking at the creation of the universe and how it fits into the Taoist philosophy, stating, the way that can be spoken is not the constant way. The name that can be named is not the constant name. The nameless was the beginning of heaven and earth. The named was the mother of the myriad creatures. Hence, always rid yourself of desires in order to observe its secrets. but always allow yourself to have desires in order to observe its manifestations. The name Dao De Jing translates roughly to the great book of the way of virtue. To break down individual words, it reads Dao, the way, De, strength or virtue, and Qing, scripture. The book is split into two parts, labeled as Book 1 and Book 2. The contents of each of these bears a loose focus. Book 1 lays out and defines the Tao or the way, also sometimes called the Tao Qing or Scripture of the Way. In the first part of the book, we find the Taoist creation story and the essential nature of the Tao. It defines desires as both hindering and necessary, and outlines tenets of Taoist religion. Book 2 of the Dao De Jing focuses more on De, strength or virtue, often referred to as De Qing or virtue scripture. This book looks at Taoism from a philosophical angle. It compares uses the concepts of yin and yang, and highlights the significance of opposite actions and no action. We see examples of this all over the text, but none more defined than the myriad creatures carry on their backs the yin and embrace in their arms the yang, and are blending of the generative forces of the two. It's in this chapter where the concept of Wu Wei is really highlighted. Wu Wei being one of the key concepts of Taoism, it translates to not doing or doing nothing. The core of Wu Wei is the belief that all action in the universe happens as it is intended, and acting against it only promotes wasted energy and hardship. One who allows Tao to take its course has better outcomes and finds more peace in life. Wu Wei leans into the concept of yin yang as well, describing how within the natural process, everything has an opposite and eventually everything transforms into its opposite. This is illustrated in the symbol of the yin yang that most of us are familiar with. Wu Wei is really just the idea of letting nature take its course and flowing with it, rather than bucking against it. These were new concepts when the book made its way to the western side of the world. However, the reaction was surprising. To many Westerners, China was a mystery of the Orient, something that few understood and that made it hard for Westerners to trust in their Eastern neighbors. Culture and language gaps made it tough for the outside world to understand Chinese culture, and vice versa. The introduction of the Dao De Jing into both English and non-English speaking countries caused several things to happen all at once. First, Westerners were introduced to a functional culture that they had previously been blind to in the guiding words of the Dao De Jing. Second, it helped to boost cultural confidence in the Chinese people, showing a solid and virtuous base that the Westerners could relate to. The Western world attempted to explain the Dao De Jing from a Christian standpoint, going as far as to use Christian missionaries to translate and interpret its messages. It was not an easy task, as there are many nuances in Chinese written word, that are hard to directly translate to English. This would explain why there are over 30 translations of the text by Western scholars. Finally, in the aftermath of two world wars, the Western world, some of it at least, was ready for the new perspective, and that is what the Dao De Jing brought to the table for them. The deep philosophical concepts contained in the book gave readers something to consider, as well as a new way to draw conclusions on subjects of many questions. Many well-respected people took an interest in the Dao De Jing and its teachings. These include British scientist Joseph Needham, who found parallels between the book's teachings and the laws of the natural world. Even the President of the United States, Ronald Reagan, quoted a concept from the Dao De Jing during a speech that he was giving, when he said, "Governing a large state is like cooking a small fish." Overall, the Dao De Jing bridged the gap between the Western and Eastern worlds, allowing Westerners to better understand Chinese culture. Now, after looking at the worldview, we should take a look at how the Tao Te Ching affects people on a personal level. What does it do for people and how do they use it? Within the two books of the Tao Te Ching, we found a roadmap for success as a Taoist. The passages within lead readers to deep thought and consideration, as well as impressing upon them the ideas and focuses of Taoist tradition. That's not to say that the Tao Te Ching is only suited for Taoists or those aspiring to become Taoists. Many of the lessons within are thought-provoking to all readers and have the potential to cause deep introspective and offer new perspectives to readers. Aside from its use as a core religious text of Taoism and the historical value of its work of literature, the Tao Te Ching is also used by people across the globe for a number of uses. The Tao Te Ching can be utilized in a group setting to stimulate conversation and bring about different perspectives. Whether they be spiritual groups or conversational groups, members can bring up passages from the Tao Te Ching and use them as seed thoughts for conversation. The more diverse the group, the better, as the conversation flows and the perspectives of different members are shared. It's an amazing opportunity for growth and progress to an open-minded group of people. It can also be effectively used outside of the group setting for personal use. Some choose to read it like poetry and just enjoy the words as they are written. Others will look at it from a historical viewpoint as a look into the past culture and what was happening in the world at the time that it was written. Still others use the Tao Te Ching as an exercise in mindfulness by setting aside some time each day to read a passage and contemplate its meaning. No matter how you use it, it is a great tool in the spiritual practice of many. In conclusion, we see the great value and versatility of this amazing piece of history. From its rich cultural history dating back to the 6th century BCE, when the Taoist religion was formed, we see the author of the Tao Te Ching as a respected confidant to Confucius, one of the great philosophers of Chinese history and the creator of his own religious movement, and their epic meeting, along with the mysterious mythology surrounding the figure of Lao Tzu, or Old Master. We consider this great global value that it provides in bringing together the East and the West, giving the Western world a greater understanding of Chinese and Eastern culture, as well as spreading Taoism across the globe. All the way down to the value that this book holds as a tool in a personal or group practice. The Tao Te Ching is without doubt one of the greatest spiritual works ever written and a key piece of history and the current practice of religion in our world. I leave you today with a quote from the Tao Te Ching that I feel exemplifies the teachings of Lao Tzu. Knowing others is intelligence. Knowing yourself is true wisdom. Mastering others is strength. Mastering yourself is true power. I hope you've enjoyed my presentation and thank you for your time today.